I get that a lot of your customers might not be on the same terms, in the sense that you might say, well, these clients have to pay within 7 days, and these kind of jobs need to be paid within 14. These ones are 30 days, or, the end of the month after the month that has already ended. People have all sorts of different time frames that they expect payment. And that's fine. Like, if you've worked out these are the terms for these kind of clients, great. The problem comes in when you get stuck on when to do debt collection, or chasing payments when people haven't paid you. So my general rule of thumb is, one, make sure that your invoices are sent out correctly and have the due date very clearly on that invoice. And then two, have an auto reminder if your accounting software allows that. Anything that you can get a robot to do for you for free, you might as well let that do it instead of wasting time for an admin personnel to do. But get an auto reminder to go out a certain number of days after the fact. I would say 5 days after a due date has passed, if you're reconciling and matching up payments pretty consistently. But of course, if you know that you're not going to be matching up the payments that you've received for a week or two, you're going to need to wait that long. So you're not sending out a reminder for something that's already been paid. So generally though, 5 days after the due date. And then a personal email I would send after 10 days after the due date. And that means don't just send the invoice again from your accounting software, because there could be a problem. There could be that email, for whatever reason, is going to their junk mail, which unfortunately happens. Or it could be the way that it's showing up in their email inbox. They're just thinking it's not what it is for whatever reason. The subject line might look a little funny to them and they're just skipping over it. If you send a direct personalized email, not only to your customer's accounts department, but also to whoever authorized your job. So if Bob, the director, confirmed your job and knows everything about it, but he was like, yeah, send the invoice to the accounts. At this point, I'd be sending the invoice to the accounts and CCing Bob on it as well, because he might go and walk over to the accounts department and say, hey, why haven't you paid this invoice yet? And they'll figure it out internally that way. So yes, I would send that 10 days after overdue, the invoice is overdue, and just in a nice email saying, hey, or I hope this reaches you well, and I just wanted to send this to you in case for some reason you've missed my last couple that I've sent, but try not to be too, mean about it. Err on the side of they're genuinely accidentally have missed it, rather than assuming they've avoided it for some malicious reason. So just phrase it, just wanted to make sure you definitely received this. If you have any questions, let me know. Sometimes you'll get a message back saying, oh, can you actually address the invoice to so-and-so? And that's why we haven't processed it. Well, thank you for letting me know, but that's okay. Now you know, you can change it, send it back to them, and then they'll pay it. Then, though, that's not the last step, because you still might not get a response or you might not get action. I would then call them 15 days after it's overdue, and this is minimum time frame, so you can speed this up, but these literal steps are my suggestion. So 15 days after it's overdue, I would call up the accounts department, and again, being quite, kind and not assuming there's something horrible going on. Not only do you just come off nicer, but it's also just a little bit less stressful for you or whoever it is that's making this phone call. You go in all aggressive, nobody feels good about that. So instead, call them up, go, hi, Susie. This is Kimberly calling from Polish Business, and I was just calling to check on the status of invoice 1234. Susie will go, oh, hi, Kimberly. Well, let me have a look in our system. Oh, invoice 123. Okay, well, I see, yeah, it's in our system. Oh, yeah, I can see it's going to be paid this Friday. Oh, thank you, Susie. I will make a note of that. And you write it down. And of course, if it doesn't go, then you call them back the day after or Monday and say, hey, just checking. And you follow it up with phone calls thereafter. But you also might get her say, oh, I don't have that in my system. I'm not sure why. Like, oh, that's interesting. I've been emailing it to, and read out the email address. Maybe you have a typo. Maybe, you've been addressing it to Susie, but you're supposed to be addressing it to Susie.l because that's in her email address. Who knows? There could be things that are throwing it off. So, yeah, you'll more than likely get your payments if you start that kind of consistency. And the first 2 steps, again, the software does it. You send it from the software, your original invoice, you send the auto reminder. Somebody's physically doing the third and the 4th steps. Last thing with that though, all communications, keep track of it. It's a lot more powerful to be going up with your 3rd or 4th phone call or an additional email and being able to say, I talked to Susie on the 3rd of February, and then I also talked to Jane on the 10th of February, and they both told me that it was going to be paid within a couple days. However, that has not occurred. That just shows you're taking some accountability and you're paying attention to what's going on. So usually I create this spreadsheet of the bare minimum. If your software allows you to put notes directly on the invoice, which for example Xero does, right at the bottom of all the invoices, there's a note area. You can click on note and then you can add, 5th of the February, 3rd of February, called, talked to Susie, and she said it'll be paid on this day. It's recorded there. But if you're not really sure where to record this kind of information, make a spreadsheet, date, invoice number, and the action taken. And for that invoice number, have every time you contact them physically, have a line or another cell. And then if there's another invoice that you're chasing, have that somewhere down here so that you can keep adding more lines for all the communications on whatever invoice. And then that's a quick snapshot. If you're an office manager or the accounts department of this business that is seeking to get your invoices paid, then you also have that register that you can quickly show your boss and the directors and be like, hey, these are the ones that I've been chasing. These are the people I've talked to. Here's my history. Additionally, if you have that kind of information, when you go and do another job for these people, you can go, they took 3 months to pay the last invoice and they, did this XYZ. Maybe I'm going to ask for a deposit before we start the next job, just to cover, those basic expenses for whatever reason. Or better yet, maybe I'm going to give them a credit card authorization so I can charge their card personally. There's lots of options there if you just keep these simple kind of records, and then you have them forever.